I realize there's a lot of people attached and invested in the idea of imposter syndrome. But personally, myself, I think imposter syndrome, when applied to people of color, is racist as fuck. I think imposter syndrome is a shit idea. You know, like just thinking of speaking up in class. You're not even in class yet. You're just thinking and you get that shot of adrenaline just go straight through your body. You feel your stomach just twist. So you gotta just think of something else. But hey, you know what makes me feel real good? Being told I have a syndrome. We need to talk about something that I call imposter training. We're not suffering from some kind of pathology, some kind of syndrome. We're trained to feel like we're imposing on spaces. So I want to show you where my imposter training started. And we need to shift the conversation away from a syndrome to a form of training. So let's go to my old classroom so I can show you where it all went down. Come on. Good. Okay, so I just arrived at GC, Graduate Center, New York City. One of the reasons why I came over here was I wanted to see if I could conjure up some of the old feelings from sitting in this classroom. I thought I was gonna feel that nervous feeling, you know, where you want to raise your hand, but your heart's pounding in your chest. You gotta make sure you have your hands connected to the table or to your side because you know if you like lift them up while you're speaking, you might actually start shaking or something. I kind of feel myself a little bit angry, like a little bit pissed off that it was such an unpleasant experience. I remember sitting in class, waiting for the perfect time to say something, right? I got something good. I know this is good. This is gonna be a fucking mic drop. Finally, I would get up the courage to like actually say something. And that loud white dude raises his hand and says exactly what I was gonna say. Or the professor says exactly what I was gonna say. The direction of the conversation just went this way, constantly referring back to that same dude, that same white dude. And I just kept thinking, wow, that was another missed chance. Sitting there coming down from that anxiety that I just put myself through. And on top of that, like, I thought of it like 30 fucking minutes ago, just sitting there. Eventually, I told myself, I won't feel bad about myself if I just decide that I'm just not gonna say anything. Why am I gonna put myself through it? So for the first 2-3 years, I said nothing in class. I didn't say anything. It didn't matter what I did. I was the only one in my class that didn't have one of those fancy, what do they call it? Moleskin. So what I would do, I would take notes on my computer. Tick, 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 typing, bam, bam, bam. I'm looking around, everybody else is writing, you know, they're into it. And like I'm sitting there, why do I have time to look around to notice that I'm the only one that doesn't look really fucking busy in that moment? That turned into like, oh, you know what? Maybe my thoughts are not as deep. It took me a few years to realize, hey, you know what? Typing is much fucking faster than writing because I wasn't using the fucking moleskin. But as you see, your imposter training is gonna tell you you're not doing it right. Where's your moleskin, Mike? And if you don't try to look the same as everybody else, then that seems like you got a personal problem. And that's the way it's framed. You have a syndrome. That is what imposter training does. It trains us, and it's part of what tells you you have a syndrome. Let's finish this up at my apartment. The room doesn't suck. I just don't want to be here, so let's go back to my place. Alright, so we're back. I was planning to do this whole bit where like I use the chalkboard over there, the marker board, but wow, I did not want to be there. I want to show you guys something based on some like very mild research, but it didn't take me too long to connect these dots. So I got my own marker board right here. Blue, green, brown. We're gonna need this brown color and you're gonna see why. Okay, let me set up a camera real quick. Ready. So in the late 1970s, when psychology was basically an all-white discipline, studying all-white patients, this idea came out called imposter phenomenon. Not syndrome, phenomenon. Let's write that down. Flash forward in time, we got POCs reaching the highest levels of everything. But also, let's keep in mind in the background, we got this intensification of the idea of meritocracy, individualism, entrepreneurialism, individual success. Over time, we get this idea of imposter syndrome. So it's not phenomenon anymore, it's imposter syndrome. Aren't these just words? I think the difference is where each term locates the imposter feelings. So now let's kind of draw this out here. So the word phenomenon does not necessarily blame the person. The person isn't the starting point. It does include some kind of background context, some kind of structural condition that people experience. Now remember, we're talking about white doctors studying white people. So imposter phenomenon preserves the idea that something is happening outside of the person's head. Unexplainable, mysterious, structural. Where's it all coming from? So now we have moved from phenomenon to syndrome. Let me switch to brown. So imposter phenomenon, we got the problem coming from outside. Syndrome, we got the problem coming from inside. Like a little spiral. There's no structural conditions that are causing this stuff. It's a pathology. And we're just constantly making things worse for ourselves. That is imposter syndrome. So I'm saying, let's get rid of that. The idea of imposter syndrome is exactly one of those structural type things that is so widely accepted that we just think it's true. But syndrome locates the problem inside the person. You don't feel good, probably because you didn't buy the moleskin notebook. So syndrome tells you you have a problem. We don't have a problem. People of color don't have a problem. We are trained to feel as though we are imposing no matter what we do. Over time, little moments adding up and adding up. That training is relentless. This is about being told, don't even apply to that college. There's no way you're gonna get into that one. Maybe you should try an easier program first. I'm not saying you can't do it. Imposter training puts the causes of the way we feel back outside of our heads. So what are we supposed to do? All I can say is you don't have a problem. And what worked for me was joining those groups specifically for scholars of color. You gotta put yourself in spaces where people believe you and people know that you're not making shit up. So personally, I decided I'm never ever gonna tell my students that they have a syndrome. I realize there's a lot of people attached and invested in the idea of imposter syndrome. If you need to conceptualize it that way, I'm not gonna tell you not to. But personally, myself, I think imposter syndrome, when applied to people of color, is racist as fuck. So that's it, guys. This is Mike. You know the drill. Subscribe, like, Twitter, academia.edu. I'll see you soon.